Hello, Denzians of the internet. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you happen to be, whatever time it happens to be on the great old internet. I'm your host, Andrew McAllister for Desk Lunch, and I'm delighted to be speaking today about, we're going to talk about Adobe Portfolio and how to create, comparing portfolio tools and how to create great portfolios, or at least the workflow for that, and then also comparing it to format.com and using WordPress. But first of all, I'd like to do a shout out for Adobe Max. Adobe Max is happening next week. And for the first time in a long time, or ever, I guess, Adobe Max is actually a free conference to go to. Adobe Max is the creativity conference organized by Adobe, typically held in, well, it's been held in Los Angeles and Las Vegas and a few different places. And this year it's all online and it's free. And there are some excellent sessions. You should definitely try to attend some of it. Usually there are product announcements, but really what I find most valuable are the talks with many different creatives talking about their process, how they use the tools, and how they think about the tools. That's most interesting to me. But there are also sessions where they go deep into how the applications actually work so that you can actually make best use of that. However, I'd always like to kick off this show by acknowledging that we in Toronto, Canada, are on the ancestral and traditional territories of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat, who are the original owners and custodians of the land on which we live, work, and create. So this week, and there's the magical, the URL for Adobe Max, which is max.adobe.com. Go there, register, schedule, attend, enjoy. Definitely worth your while. Next week, October 20th and 21st. So this week was inspired by a faculty member actually at the Ontario College of Art and Design University asking about what their students should use with regard to presenting their work online. How do they create a portfolio? In previous desk lunch sessions, I have profiled some tools that faculty or anyone can use to show their work online, whether that be Adobe Spark or Microsoft Sway, or using Adobe Creative Cloud to share links to works in progress. However, now let's talk about portfolios a little bit. And I just want you to know that if you're wondering what this is, so Desk Lunch is kind of a free-form hangout for art, design, and creative educators, ed tech people, and creative people who want to avoid the eternal doom scrolling routine of lunch, which I do a lot. And just if you don't know about me, I'm Andrew McAllister. I'm the Director of Academic Computing and Innovation at OCAD University, and I enjoy helping artists, designers, and creatives do the amazing things that they do with technology. I'm a technology person. So, as I mentioned this week, I was asked, what can I use to present my work and which one is the best? It's always the question, which one's the best? Just show me the best one. So what can I use and what should I use? Of course, I won't be able to necessarily tell you what you should use, but I'm going to try to reveal some limitations or peculiarities with using various different platforms. And then depending on your use case, you will then determine what the right thing is for you. So I'm going to compare Adobe Portfolio to format.com and WordPress. You're probably wondering why I'm not including those other platforms that many people mention on YouTube. Partially why I'm not including them is, for one, they get plenty of airtime on the social media platforms. I'm not as familiar with them. I do know something about them. And three, the reason why I'm focusing on format.com, it's something that OCAD U students have access to. And hey, I'm biased. I'm a great nationalist. It's a bunch of Canadians. And it does something in particular that may be of interest to some of you. I'm also going to talk a little bit about using Adobe Fonts. Adobe Fonts is the most amazing font service that is included with a Creative Cloud subscription. And even if you don't have a Creative Cloud subscription, it's something that might kind of draw you in because of the vast array of fonts that can be used on desktop, mobile, and the web. And my goodness, it's so much better than the way things used to be. So, all right. One of these days, I'll learn how to use Keynote. Oh, let's show them the same slide again. Aha! Hey, Lisa Temple. Lisa Palmer and A Villa, delighted to have you on the stream as I fumble my way through Keynote. Here we go. Okay. So what I wanted to point out here was just to think about these different platforms to give you a bit of a framework. So Adobe Portfolio and Format.com will present themselves as being a little bit easier to work with. WordPress .org I'm going to focus on is more difficult. Looking at what's feature rich, do they have visual editing, and then also thinking about security, backup, and performance. But let's dive in and actually look at the platforms. So I'm just going to switch to my main screen. Whoop. Very good. Okay, so what we're looking at here is Adobe Portfolio. And what's great about Adobe Portfolio is that if you're already a Behance user, when you create your first Adobe Portfolio site, which you can create up to 5 sites, I believe. Is it 3 more sites? With Adobe Portfolio, it will actually automatically ingest all of your Behance projects, which is quite helpful. So you can see that these are things that have been pulled from Behance. And actually, if you want to see what that looks like, I'll just go to my profile. So I have, oh, look, I'm live. Oh, God, that's so meta. So if I go to my work, you can see here, these are different projects that I've created in Behance. And when I go into Adobe Portfolio, it automatically ingests those Behance projects you can see here. What's also great about Adobe Portfolio is that it has Lightroom integration. So this first item that you're looking at here is actually an imported Lightroom project that I've chosen to import, which already existed in my Lightroom CC library. So if you're a Lightroom user, Lightroom CC, definitely Adobe Portfolio has that shortcut for you. And the way that you do that, you can go to integrations. So first of all, the Behance integration is turned on by default and asks you which projects you want to import. Okay. And then you can then import specific Lightroom albums. So here I can click Add Album. It's going to launch a separate window. Then I'm going to look at, why don't we look at this one, GradX 2018. That's the graduate exhibition for our university. And then it will import that item and automatically add it here. And you can see that it gives you a visual way of actually editing your portfolio and automatically generates navigation, which is great. It also has 12 built-in templates I had to look at. I'm using the Matthias template. It's based off of this Matthias Heydrich. He's a photographer, quite beautiful. I was quite taken by his architecture. Pretty fantastic stuff. But you can easily switch to another template. And I'll just create a new site just for fun. So here you can see what the templates are that are offered. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And you can you're given the option to create a full portfolio or just a welcome page. So it's just like a single scrolly page. I'm going to create a new one and I will pick a different theme, maybe Mercedes. I was sort of struck by actually this illustrator who looks a lot like Gary Texali. Gary Texali is a illustrator from OCAD University, and he did the artwork for our 100th anniversary, and he designed stuff that looks like this. Very famous, lovely fellow. And it's funny that I had that mug here handy. Just let me have a drink here. So this work here. so you can actually use this theme. So I can fire up a new site. So I was actually quite surprised, and just full disclosure, I'm not an Adobe Portfolio expert. This is sort of like my first impressions. It's quite flexible. I was really quite surprised. For example, so let's actually pick. So here, what it's done is, again, it's ingested all my Behance content, and I can actually go in and edit these pages. I can edit this text, which is great. So it does a one-time import, but it does give me the flexibility to modify that. I do have a lot of control over the look and feel. Once I've picked a theme, it's not immediately apparent, but on the left-hand navigation here, there is different color schemes you can pick. So you can pick light or dark. You can select fonts, and you can also add fonts from Adobe Fonts, which is lovely. You can have custom backgrounds. And also you can control headers, subheaders. You can tweak this quite a bit in terms of the visual style. What I thought was interesting was, of course, I know it's now the standard, but text links are now gray. Every hyperlink's gray. When I first started on the internet, it was all bright blue. Anyway, so you can actually modify the control of the page quite considerably, and it does update in real time. So like, for example, if I go in here and I say, no, it must be blue. Preview. Oh, actually, I think I have to save this in order for it to update. I did this before. Anyway, you can do that. You can also, what I thought was interesting was in the settings, there's quite a bit of control on the back end where you can create your own custom domains. You can modify which is your homepage. This incidentally to me is very WordPress-like. You can integrate Google Analytics or other analytics tool. Well, I guess Google Analytics. And also it has GDPR compliance. So as you may know, in the European Union, they have GDPR, the Global Data Protection regulation. Anyway, the point is that you have to give users the ability to accept or reject cookies and explain to them why the cookies are being set, and so that they know that their privacy is being protected. So there is actually a cookie banner built right in. Woo! Super helpful. I'll point out why later this is actually really good, because on some of the other platforms, you have to find ways of enabling this functionality separately. So we talked about analytics. There's some SEO, so you can put in meta description, custom meta tags. You can set the favicon, so that's the little icon that shows up at the top. Social sharing thumbnail, I thought that was good. And web clip icon, I was like, oh, look at that. You can have a password protected site. So again, this is something that WordPress does. And yeah, so, I mean, because we don't have a lot of time, I kind of have to blast through this. So overall, I would say Portfolio quite impressive and does integrate with default domains, custom domains, and has a number of integrations as well too, although they are limited to these ones. I wanted to mention format.com only because maybe it's, hint Adobe, somewhere where Adobe wants to go. What's great about Format, there are a bunch of Canadians that started a portfolio site, and it's something that OCADU university students have access to. What their strength, they've been very much focused on photography. They have many, many templates. And I think this is probably, I'm sure Adobe Portfolio is going to be adding additional templates, but they offer very many, many, many templates. So many templates. So if you're like, I don't like that one, I would like to choose another one. And they're all responsive, just like the ones on Adobe, which is helpful as well too. This is what a site of mine looks like. Oh, I didn't actually show you either of my sites. So this is what a format.com site looks like. This is using a very old template of theirs. So you have these like side scrolling portfolios, gobs of text, like artist statements or descriptors. So that's actually quite helpful, and multiple levels of navigation. And you can choose what those look like. I look so young there. I created this site quite a while ago. What's nice about Format is that on the back end, it does appear to have some integration with mailing lists because side scroll, right? Lisa Temple, very nice. It does have mailing list integration in the sense that there's web form support so that you can actually get people to subscribe to your newsletter or something like that. Because as we all know, building your brand or company or so on, you want to reach out to your users, your customers, and create relationships with them. And many people have mailing lists that they maintain, and that's really important. So good feature. Similarly, they have SEO options, custom domains. I also wanted to point out that they do also have some nice integrations. So what I would say is that if you happen to be an Adobe Creative Cloud subscriber, but let's say you have switched to Capture One for some reason, you have, had too many bad days with Lightroom for some strange reason, and you are using Capture One. So Format does have an integration with Capture One. It also has an integration for Lightroom. I believe this is Lightroom Classic, as the graphics here are sort of indicating. So that's actually quite helpful as well too. And all of these systems have ways of you being able to create pages, create custom menus. Adobe Portfolio similarly does allow you to do that, but it's really based on the work and the things that you create in your navigation. So you have the ability to switch things on or switch things off. Oh, wait a second. I was wrong. Look at that. There is a contact form in Portfolio, but there does also appear to be mailing list integration in Format. Now, just like flipping back for a second, I just want to draw like why am I going into this level of detail? So, or not detail. Why am I glossing through this? I maintain, full disclosure, a number of WordPress sites, and sometimes people say, well, why don't we use XYZ website builder? And one of the reasons is that if you are an artist, photographer, illustrator, someone for whom you just want a trod path to get your portfolio online, and you enjoy the layouts like the PhotoGrid layouts that are provided by Adobe Portfolio, and the general layout, I would say both of these are good options. However, it's always when it's like, but now I want to do this. Like, now I want to have a members only area of my site, or now I want to do like e-commerce, or now I want to do this like very custom thing that doesn't exactly fit within the confines of what Adobe Portfolio, Format.com, or any of those other site systems are capable of doing, or they require third-party integrations. So really, to me, your next option is WordPress. And here I put WordPress.org, meaning you're installing the custom version of WordPress on your own hosted site and running that. And part of the reason why I'm going to talk about WordPress is to sell many of you on the idea that really probably you should just use Adobe Portfolio because it would be like way easier. Because actually, even as a seasoned WordPress user, I have experienced a great many surprises and things that you don't initially think about that are really beyond visually how the site looks and how easy it is for you to get your content up onto it, but like all of the other responsibilities that you take on board with actually when using that. Lindsay Palmer says, the contact on Portfolio just sends you an email notification to your email address associated with your Adobe account. Okay, that's good to know. So let's say, now this is kind of, so I run my site on WordPress, and I have used WordPress for a long, long time, partially because I started off as a web designer and then became a web developer, and that's just part of my practice. I'm sort of trying to keep fresh by learning WordPress and so on and so forth. However, you can also make a lot of WordPress, because it's an open source project. There's lots of great templates out there. There are people who develop them, but you really have to do everything yourself. And so in this like lovely chart that I have, something that you don't really realize is that Adobe Portfolio, they're hosting the site. They're making sure that it's secure, that it's backed up, and that it performs well. That's something that you kind of have to take care of yourself with WordPress. And I'm going to go into a little bit of detail. Oh, primary differences. There's my title. And then also there's integrations. And then I mentioned, SEO. So what I'm going to do is actually show you how to integrate, or what the back end of WordPress looks like in comparison with one of these other tools, so that it might shock you into saying, no, Adobe Portfolio is my bag. That's what I want to use. Or it might intrigue you because it's highly extensible. So I'm just actually going to go onto my WordPress dashboard. So I'm running WordPress 5.5.1, which is the latest. So this is hosted on my own custom site. And I've got some very detailed built-in analytics here. You would get this the same. This is just Google Analytics, but it's displaying to me in a dashboard. But the thing about WordPress is that it's highly extensible. So it has a plugin architecture such that you can add features to it through third-party developed plugins. However, in contradistinction to Adobe Portfolio and the other platforms, there are some plugins that you kind of have to install in WordPress just to make it work as well as, or approaching as well as, Adobe Portfolio. Features that you would think that are the default and not, and are not included. For example, here's a long list of plugins that I have running in WordPress. In WordPress, I have to install a security plugin because WordPress is a target for hackers. So many people don't keep their plugins up to date and their WordPress sites get hacked. So you have to run a security plugin. You then have to run a plugin for, here's an interesting one, backup and restore. So I have a separate plugin that backs up my website to Dropbox or some other service. I have another plugin that actually compresses images as I import them into it. So you can see I'm starting to add up all of the things that you kind of have to do yourself in WordPress, that these other platforms, they take care of that for you. Recently, I discovered that my website was running rather slowly. Or rather, it was like there was a long load time. And I suddenly realized that it was a caching issue with loading that information from the database. And, well, you have to install a plugin so you can provide better caching support for your website in WordPress. And there's this one actually, which is made by Automatic, called WP Super Cache. There's another one called Rocket. They all just provide heightened performance for your site. And is another thing that you have to worry about. So like really you have the keys to the car, but you have to maintain it as well too. You also have to keep it up to date. I actually don't have any update warnings up here, but you will get warnings saying that you have to update your site very frequently. And also WordPress does come with a number of themes. So actually, if you go into appearance, so this is, I'll go back to how you, so we started this discussion with showing you what themes are available. Well, there's tons and tons of themes available for WordPress. Oh, look, I'm getting a warning. Something was broken, but now it's been fixed. I'm unhappy. I'll have to go figure that out. There's some built-in WordPress themes. There's lots of other ones that you can download from WordPress.org. WordPress.org. That's where you go to get all the things. However, I just found that I used to customize my own WordPress themes. I don't have a ton of time to do that anymore. So now I just usually buy a theme and customize it. So I bought this wonderful theme called Sitka, made by Solo Pine. Big shout out to them. And these are some developers who develop WordPress themes. I purchased this theme for $40 off of Theme Forest. But I wasn't enamored with the default fonts. So how do I customize those with Adobe Fonts? Quite simply, actually. So WordPress allows you to customize the theme. It provides you HTML level control to a number of different elements in your theme. You can go bananas. You can break your site very effectively. Not something that you could do with Adobe Portfolio. If you're worried about breaking your site, use Adobe Portfolio. Excuse me. However, I really wanted to use fonts built into Adobe Fonts. And if you're not familiar with Adobe Fonts, fonts.adobe.com, it should have a jingle. Oh, yes, I was working on fonts for another site that I support called School of Bitchcraft. If you're not familiar with it, it is the art of unlearning to be good. It's a site about feminism, feminist heroes, and so on and so forth. And yeah, it's good times. Anyway, so you can type in a piece of sample text here and select there are tags here, but I can select specific, look for, here, classification. I was like, yes, I want a serif, I want a heavyweight, and so on and so forth. And once I've selected a family, I can then activate those fonts, or I can add them to a web project. So I'm actually I'm not going to add them to a web project. I would like to look at my my web projects. Once you've selected a font, so you can see here, I have a number of different sites. I think I actually reused this one for my site. It gives you a link to a style sheet, which is great. You can then just include that in your HTML. So in WordPress, again, going back to Adobe Portfolio, let's do a side-by-side. Because you might be like, well, why is this? Why do you recommend such things? So remember these controls that we had here around modifying headers and subheaders, and how they're like relatively straightforward and give you a nominal amount of control. Oh yeah, totally check out School of Bitchcraft. It's good times. And guess what? Sign up for the newsletter. Woo woo! Full disclosure, this is run by my wife, Sabina Heichel, or actually Sabina McAllister. She's taken on my name. It's lovely. Sabina writes a newsletter, and she has a subscribe thing. So this is integrated with MailChimp. So that's what's great about WordPress, is that there's plugins for everything, and it's a full-blown like content management system. It's not really fair to compare these two things. It's a content management system versus, a portfolio, using, it's like using a Canon to, solve, or, trying to use a very big tool to solve a very small problem. But the benefit is that you can do a great many things with it. So it gives you a link to a style sheet here. And And in WordPress, here are your similar controls, which are much less digestible than the ones in Portfolio. For example, in Portfolio, you just go ahead and pick your font sizes. Good times. Over here, whoops, over here, no, over here, yes, too many tabs. Here you're dictating font sizes, and it depends on the theme and what controls are offered. But here it's giving you, oh, this is height of actually elements. I digress. You can actually pick the font settings here in pixels. Oh, no, that's the shadow box color. You can see how much control you have. It's sort of mind-boggling. This is not really meant to teach you how to do this thing. It's meant to show you kind of how impenetrably difficult this is, or how much customization it can have. But if you want to add Adobe Fonts to this, you actually have to do it in using custom CSS, additional CSS. So in WordPress, what you have to do is you have to use the @import command to grab that URL of the CSS file that's generated by Adobe Fonts. So back over here, this is tiny. We're going to make this really big so you can see it. There's a link to a style sheet. Okay, and this is a style sheet that contains the font definitions for each site that you manage. Here you have to import it into WordPress, and then what you have to do is dust off your knowledge of CSS and HTML to remember how to style various different elements in the page using the CSS selectors. If I've lost you already, the answer is you should use Adobe Portfolio, because isn't this nicer? Isn't this nicer to use? It's a little more straightforward for an artist or designer. Yeah, I get to make this. So once you have imported those, once you've imported the style sheet and you've styled the post entries and the various headers, as you see I've done here using Futura, which I love, you then get to have this like lovely styled website. However, sometimes it can be a little, depending on how the theme is constructed, not always the most straightforward exercise. What more was I going to say about that? What's powerful about WordPress is that you can also, of course I want to lose it. I would love to lose the changes. Lose those changes. Is that WordPress, it's a full-blown content management system. So it has kind of two major concepts. It has a concept of pages. So you can have a series of pages which have content on them. And just as we were editing pages over here in Portfolio, so I'm going to go into a page in Portfolio. Oops. Let's go back to my work. It's nice. You can actually use the interface to browse through the site. I'm going to click on this page, drill down on it. I can edit any of this text. That's quite nice. Likewise, you can do so in WordPress, but it has a very specific editor, which I'll show you in just a moment. You'll also notice that how these pages load a lot slower. You know, hosting your site on Adobe's infrastructure is a lot faster necessarily than the you know, what I might be using for hosting sites. Again, page load speed, security, backup, all of these things. There's all this stuff that you're paying for as a part of that service that you kind of don't really realize, you kind of take for granted. And then when you kind of go elsewhere, you suddenly realize, oh, that works quite well. The page editor in WordPress is what you see is what you get. You can edit. This kind of reminds me of Spark a little bit. You can like I said, here's your styling options. You can also edit as HTML. You can add various different blocks with different kinds of content, whether it's an image or a video or some such thing. You can also set featured images, but you can see here a lot more complicated. So kind of coming back to the question, which is this designed on Portfolio? Oh, no. School of Bitchcraft is a WordPress site and using a WordPress theme. But the Portfolio site I was going to show was this one. I'm quite impressed with Portfolio as to how capable it is and how nice it is. And this is just the out-of-the-box experience that I'm using. Yes. And you can create, like I said, several different sites just with the same account. This is the Matthias theme that I was using, again, and in dark mode. Anyway, I digress, Misty. Glad you asked the question. So the block editor, yeah, it's quite a bit more complicated. So anyway, so again, going back to the question is, like, what's the goal? Like, if you're trying to just build a portfolio site that kind of gets you from A to B, then, you know, really Portfolio is a spectacular tool. If you're actually trying to teach yourself HTML, CSS, if you're trying to teach yourself as a designer, if you're trying to add that to your suite of tools, that you have capabilities working with stuff on the web, not only just as a WordPress user, but if you start getting into the guts of it, that's actually, it's a real skill. And many news sites and also content sites use WordPress as a content management system backend for developing or delivering their content, partially because you can, because it is highly extensible. For example, as I mentioned earlier, let's say you are building your business and you want to have a member site. You can do that with WordPress. You can add a plugin and have a members only site. Let's say you want to start delivering courses, private courses to people that are accessible through a subscription model, or they purchase access to them. There are full-blown learning management systems that plug into WordPress that allow you to do that. There are e-commerce integrations, mailing list integrations. The list is endless. However, you kind of have to do everything yourself. So if you're an artist or a designer and you're looking for a straightforward way to do this, I'd say Adobe Portfolio, pretty gosh darn good, pretty impressive. And if you're already using Behance to post a lot of your content, and remember, you can post to Behance directly from Adobe's applications as well too, it really paves the way for using Portfolio. Not to mean to say that Portfolio can't grow and grow, as I look forward to it doing in the future. And I hope that Adobe adds additional integrations. Like, for example, Adobe has a number of, like Adobe Rush. I'd love to see an integration there where you can post directly different content page types and so on. Like that would be awesome. Yeah. So I'm just going to check, checking the chat. I think we're doing well. That's good. So I covered Adobe Fonts. I use Adobe Fonts extensively. And if you're not, please do. It's fantastic. Really great. And now I think it was since the last Adobe Max. Oh, and of course, we're in the Adobe Max t-shirt, hoodie thing from, I think it was from 2018. I think I missed 2019. They added 15,000 fonts to Adobe Fonts. So now it's really what you need to use. Of course, you have to maintain a subscription to Creative Cloud. Goes without saying. An uninterrupted subscription. And you can create multiple page types. What about WordPress? I did actually digress a little bit. the other thing about WordPress is that it has, so I was mentioning this, so it has pages, and then it also has posts. And because WordPress started with blogging, posts were meant to be like your blog post. But you can use the concept of a post in many different ways because posts have categories and tags. And because the navigation can dynamically update based on categories, there isn't necessarily a lot of manual work that you need to do. So for example, if you look at my site, actually I'll go back, I'll just navigate. Many of the pages, you'll notice I do not use the pages tool in WordPress. I use posts because all of these, these navigation elements are, or creative and edtech are categories, and then about and contact are actual pages, such that all I have to do is create a post with the category of edtech, and then when I drill down on that page, it's going to show me every single page with that category. Pretty useful, and with the default layout. So I don't have to create this, it just automatically generates this, which is really lovely. Makes a lot of sense. So it's really based for sites that have lots and lots and lots of content. And because WordPress is an open source tool, there's an open source community who contribute to it. And actually last week I had Julius Forsyth on Desk Lunch, who is the principal instigator behind EduDoodle. This is an open source theme that Julia has used on her WordPress site from Cogdog. Of course, Cogdog is Alan Levine. And I guess he's created this free WordPress theme for people to use and shared it with people. Lovely. So there's kind of an open ecosystem of people creating, contributing to, and improving upon. However, again, going back to Adobe Portfolio, you get to rely on Adobe maintaining and updating the tool that you're using to publish online, which generally I find Adobe very trustworthy and that they'll keep my site online versus, sometimes if you can run into trouble with some WordPress related stuff because it is an open community of contributors and you're having to kind of DIY build your site. So, yeah. So I think, on that note, I'm just going to switch back to I'm just going to transition and I'm just going to say, stay safe and stay sane, people. I know it's super weird times out there. Dare I say, well, they are mentioning on Behance, please go vote. I'm located in Toronto, Canada, and I have to say, my goodness, the amount of effort that Americans have to expend voting is substantial. I mean, maybe there's good news stories, but we hear all the bad news, and wow, hours of waiting in line, that sounds dreadful. But I wish everyone go and exercises their democratic rights, because that's what makes our societies great in Canada and North America and in the United States. And that you stay safe from coronavirus. There has been an uptick in cases in Toronto, which is unfortunate, and we're having to now move back to stage 2. Some things are starting to close down. So yeah, not great. So you folks stay safe out there. Stay creative. I hope you create some amazing things and sign up for, of course, you got to sign up for Adobe Max. Adobe Max is next week. There is an education track on with Adobe Max this year. You can tick the magic box and see that. Here, shall we do it? Shall we sign in? Shall I show you? Shall I prove to you? Oh, yes, I know it. Yes. Yes, I know it requires an Adobe ID. Haha. There is an educator track in Adobe Max, so definitely check that out. You're now going to see my entire schedule because, you know, why not? Track. I'm not joking. Oh, track. Education. Amazing. And there's some amazing keynotes that are going to be there. So please do take in as much of that as you can, it being free. Normally it's, an exciting in-person hedonistic event that kind of reminds me, Pan Am and the Hunger Games without all of the, gladiatorial blood sport. Like it's this like lavish, exciting, creative time to be in. Of course, we'll have to replicate that at home in the online experience. But yeah, do definitely check it out. Anyway, so stay safe, stay sane. That's all for me.